Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Ser Ezra, the Watchful. And friends, welcome back to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we have something special for you. We brought a special guest. We like to bring the best of the best, the experts, you know what I mean? So we have Nikki here at KLEC. How's it going? How you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Hey, we're doing great. As I think you need to emphasize, though, it's at Kale EC.
Sorry.
Kale
Like the
underscore
brassica.
EC. Right.
You know,
Right.
I had back in the day. So Nikki, I had a kale shake that I have to find the video somewhere, and it was just full. There was so much kale, and it kind of turned me
kale.
off of kale for a while,
I see.
because it was just too much. But now I'm back. I kind of eased in with some baby spinach. I've been getting my greens in. My wife is all about the vegetarian lifestyle, so that's what we eat. That's what we do. So now there's kale in my fridge. First time in years. So just want to say that I'm back on the
Right.
kale train.
You're
That's
probably
amazing.
gonna have to tell. You're probably gonna have to tell the story of how you got the handle Kale EC.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was I don't know how many years ago. This is such a boring story. I was on holiday in the Lake District in the UK with my friends, and I think we were playing Game of Thrones Monopoly. And I'm big on like eat your greens, vegetables are great for you. And my friends were taking the mick out of me. And it literally, I think one of them said like, "Oh, we should just start calling you KLEC," and that's just how it stuck. So yeah, that's where that came from.
That's great. It's cool.
Literally think it's awesome. Yeah. And so like the other big thing too. So this is your handle for your TikTok.
And
Yes.
Instagram, right? I think it's both.
And Instagram, yes.
Yeah.
Use it for everything.
So I found Nikki on TikTok. I was just scrolling through, and it's one of those things where this is kind of the way I've found TikTok works. Is you're scrolling through, and like something pops up in your feed, and like okay, you watch it, you hit the like button, and then you're scrolling through your feed again, and then like the next day or whatever, a video from that same creator pops up, and so you watch it, you like it. So about like by the third or fourth time, typically is like okay, then you just hit follow, and then it was just like video after video, and I was like okay, I'm just gonna message her, and I tried to message you on TikTok, but apparently you can't message people on TikTok unless they are following you.
Oh, can
And
you
so
not?
so I actually typed up the message that I sent you on Instagram, which you can, and I actually sent it, and then I realized on the thing, luckily you had like responded immediately. You were like, yeah, this sounds great, because I realized how stupid that message was that I sent you, because I'm like, hey, I like your content here on TikTok is great, but I sent it to you on Instagram, and I was like, well, now I look like a moron. So it worked out.
No,
So
I just assumed that you'd clicked through, because I think I've got the link on my TikTok to my Instagram,
do,
so I
yeah.
assumed you just clicked through from that. So it didn't look stupid at all. Don't worry.
Okay, that's okay. So, I think about half of everything I do looks stupid. So, anywho, Nikki, you do great content on TikTok. Just diving through a lot of people's questions and everything, just sort of about Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire, the show. I think you said you sort of consider yourself, on this show. It's like I always joke that I'm a Targaryen loyalist. It sounds like you are a Lannister loyalist.
Yes. I thought I would get a little bit of pushback for that, because a lot of the stuff I post is very pro Lannister, and I know that they're diabolical. And I thought a lot of people might come after me for sort of defending some of the things that they do, or at least trying to justify. But there hasn't been any. Everyone's been really, really nice, which has been shocking but lovely. But yeah, I'm definitely in the Lannister camp, I think.
Awesome. Okay, well, that works out great, because what we're talking today is we're going to do sort of a just House Lannister Winds of Winter, like theory prediction kind of guide. And we're going to take a look at obviously the big three: Tyrion, Cersei, and Jaime. But we're going to start with Kevin Lannister and sort of what we think the fallout of his death is going to be. Ez and I try to use, not always, but just in some cases, we look at the show as sort of like some level of what happens in the show has to be true. Like it has to be an outline, like a frame, like even if it's like a loose framework, like
Yes.
Some level of it is going to go down that kind of path. But and then some seem like it's just there's no way. There's obviously some there's no way it's even going to be close, because like Sansa, for example, is not in the role of Jane, Poole, who's like Arya Stark, all that stuff. So House Lannister, though, I think could maybe go down something, but there's still a lot that's totally different. So that's just, I guess, somehow how we sort of frame our mindsets, but not that we have to, but just sort of in the event we go down that route, that is kind of, I guess, something that's always in the back of our mind. Right. Yes. It happens. Yep. So, okay. So we'll start with Kevin Lannister. So at the end of Dance with Dragons, I mean, talk about total change from from the show, because in the show, Kevin is one of the ones that's blown up in the Sept of Baelor. Kevin Lannister also in the books is way more important than he is in the show, like almost a totally different character, where once Tywin kind of dies, he steps in and he is this patriarchal overseer of the family. And he's really the one making a lot of decisions, and he's doing a lot of great political maneuvering, I think, really to set House Lannister up. And honestly, he might be, I guess, the figure to look at. There's all these political moves that he was planning on making before he dies. Like you see that in the he's in the epilogue, right, of A Dance with Dragons, and then Varys ultimately kills him. But he's thinking about, well, who was it as that we were talking about last week that he was planning on bringing back the Merryweathers, right? Hey, exactly. Bring them back.
Orton Merryweather.
All of these figures we could bring back, and then he's killed.
Yeah.
So now Cersei has lost another sort of key Lannister figure that's running the show, and it feels like all of that weight is about to fall on her after she's just come back. So Cersei's going to be like probably the most exciting to talk about. But so just thoughts. We'll start with you, Nikki, since you're the guest. Like, what do you think the fallout sort of Kevin's death is going to be?
Do you know what? Part of me thinks that Cersei is going to enjoy it because let me try and get my timing right. So Joffrey dies. Then we lose Tywin, and she asks Jaime to be Tommen's hand, and Jaime refuses. She then goes to Kevin like it's the best idea that she's ever had. And of course, I would come straight to you, Kevin. And Kevin's response is no, because I know you've asked Jaime. And they have this back and forth. And eventually he agrees on the condition that Cersei goes back to Casterly Rock. And it pretty much says to her, you did such a bad job with Joffrey. You can't stay here. I cannot trust you to keep an eye over Tommen. So I will become Tommen's regent. You need to leave. And she doesn't do it. So I think after everything that's happened with the Faith Militant, Cersei's going to be terrified that Kevin's come back to clean up her mess, basically. I think in her mind, she'll be panicking. Okay, well, what's Kevin going to do to me? I think if you remove him, I think Cersei is going to see that as an opportunity to take power back for herself. She's got no sort of hindsight, bless her. Everything she does is just a mistake. So, I'm not sure how she's going to spin it, because I think Varys' intention was to either make it look like it was Tyrion, to either wind up Cersei, or have the Tyrells think it was Cersei herself. So, I'll be interested to see how Cersei takes that one, but I think she'll use that as an opportunity to kind of get her power back.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting that she would think that, and that's a great little recap, by the way, too, because it's this whole it is a mess. She's absolutely created this mess, and she does want just her brother there and the whole thing, and it's then he goes off and does his thing. At first, Kevin's like he's got to get his house in order and help Lancel out, and then once Cersei is taken, we got to go back and make things right. So that's a really, really interesting point. It kind of does. Matt said we would maybe drift into the show, but I almost wonder if it does catapult her into like, well, there's no one to check her. You know what I mean? There's really like, and actually it's what Varys wants anyways, which is chaos. Cersei is chaos. Like, just she is already doing exactly what Varys wants. And it's almost one of the reasons why Varys sort of hints at the idea that he likes to, he helps Tyrion once Tyrion gets in. I wonder if there's actually more to the whole, how Tywin and everyone knew about him bringing Shay in, because again, Varys is seemingly friendly, but Tyrion provides too much stability. He's too he's doing things the right way and makes sense. And so does Tywin. So that's not what Varys wants. Varys is like bragging at the end, and people debate whether or not this is, true, or is he just, I don't know. He's bragging to Kevin, isn't he, about Aegon? Like he's like talking about young Griff and all those things. And so I feel like this is what he wants. And so to Nikki's point, Cersei will gladly step in here, and it's the crossbow. Like there's the bolt to the chest, right? Similar to how Tywin died. I think, is there a Lannister mark or not a Tyrell? I feel like there was something else planted, and I have to go look it up, that might indicate that it was someone else. Like there was Varys, just the way this was conducted, I think is to point to various, people that would create mistrust between Cersei and this person, or more just paranoia about Tyrion, maybe.
Because
Kevin. Go ahead.
Sorry. Isn't there a plant in Tyrion's cell after he's freed? Someone leaves a coin, one of the coins that Olenna Tyrell carries around with her, so that Cersei thinks, right, well, the Tyrells have done this to sort of start that snowball. So that would make sense if there was one with Kevin as well.
Because Varys says real quick, as that when he kills Kevin, he bears him no malice, but he cannot allow Kevin to undo Cersei's misrule. So it is Varys. It is Varys saying to Kevin, he's like, look, Cersei's doing such a bad job. We can't have this.
We can't mess this up.
It's like we can't mess this up, man. She's sabotaging herself.
Yeah. She's doing exactly what they want. Because it is, so it's one of those things where I always accuse. Well, I don't accuse. I love George R.R. Martin is I say let him finish the books, but sometimes I see the story going outward. I just keep seeing these threads just going out. This is one moment with the Kevin situation where, if it is true and we're getting a connection between Varys and Illyrio, and we're starting to understand their plot and their scheme, it's starting to kind of bring things back together, and we're starting to get this idea that this is what they want. This is the path forward for young Griff, Aegon, what have you. It's just to cause all this chaos. And there's all these supposed Targaryen loyalists, House Darry and so on, who will be around ready to answer that call when young Griff marches in there and takes over, which is another thing we can talk about later. But I think, the Kevin situation is a big deal. The other thing that's a big deal is Jaime's proximity to King's Landing, the fact that he's not there. So it is just Cersei. It's not like there's some other voice of reason who's there with her that's a family member. It's just she's all kind of bristled up in terms of like protecting, her family. I mean, even though Kevin kind of slights her here and there, she would trust him more than she would trust this person or that person. So she does approach him at one point. So now I think she's just going to be seeing, I don't know, little Tyrions or Tyrell plots all over the place.
Yeah. So here's I got the
there we go.
The text, the text pulled up here. So what happens is it's kind of interesting because Varys comes in and he tells Kevin, I thought the crossbow fitting. You shared so much with Lord Tywin. Why not that? Your niece will think the Tyrells had you murdered. Mayhaps, of course, that's the word to let everyone know that that's it's sort of a lie or anything. With the convenience of the imp, the Tyrells will suspect her. Someone somewhere will find a way to blame the Dornishmen. Doubt, division, and mistrust will eat the very ground beneath your boy king, whilst Aegon raises his banner above Storm's End, and the lords of the realms gather around him. And then he goes into it being Aegon, young Griff, Fagon, right? You want to get down that route too. And then he tells him he's been shaped for this whole deal.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah.
Well
so
done,
yeah.
Derek. Well done.
Yeah, I know. Varys is much more developed in the books, obviously, than he is in the show, where he's just doing it for the realm, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so let's we'll look at Jamie. We'll kind of shift gears here as because you were kind of bringing up Jamie, because Jamie's kind of in the middle of really, I think, all of this. Whereas, like, Cersei's very on one side. Tyrion obviously is, well, he's on the other side of the world. And we'll kind of talk about them all, obviously, because they're all connected. But so Jamie, right? He's out and around doing stuff, right? So the way his kinds of ends is after settling matters at Raventree, Jamie and his men head back to Riverrun. They make camp at Pennytree, where the locals will still wary of travelers and King's men, and will not allow Jamie's men to enter the Holdfast, right? Because they're trying to take Riverrun. Jamie decides not to follow the advice of Kenos of Case, who recommends that he storm the Holdfast. While at Pennytree, Jamie receives an unexpected visit from Brienne of Tarth. She tells Jamie that she has found Sansa, who is a day's ride away. She claims, however, that Jamie must go with her alone, or else the Hound will kill the girl.
Yeah, it's
totally
real serious.
Yeah. So as we'll go the opposite direction.
Serious.
Opposite direction this time. So like, what are you thinking is going to be like Jamie's sort of arc in Winds of Winter?
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Nikki thinks on this too, because I kind of wonder if it's going to go like he's on this redemption arc. Is he going to learn how to he's getting better with his left hand, right? Non-sword hand and his training and stuff. But it seems like they're going into I'm very confused about this. I don't know. I don't think that Brienne,
Right. The audio book.
Yeah.
He says it 3 different ways, like throughout the entire thing.
Brienne of Tarth is going. I don't know. What is she going to actually deliver him to Lady Stoneheart, or along the way, does she have another plan? Because I've wondered a lot about, like, is Thoros of Mir going to do something? Is he going to stop this? Is he going to try to, intervene in some way or the other? Because the Brotherhood Without Banners is kind of split, fractured a little bit. There's just a lot of killing going on over there. I don't see him going there and dying. I don't see him going and being, killed, right? I kind of like, the show takes him even further north, and he seems to be this sort of hero who might contribute in some way, whether it be a commander or even just as a great swordsman, left-handed. I think that'd be really cool. And maybe he and Brienne get closer. That's possible. That I think there is a closeness there between them. He gave her the Oathkeeper. Is that right? The sword? Yeah.
Yes.
So I see him going further and further away from Cersei, which allows Cersei just to kind of keep like the bubbling madness and the chaos to continue to the point where if he ever does return. It is interesting how the show did that, like that all this has gone on and then still in the end they're embracing or whatever. I don't know if that's going to go down, but I feel like he's going to have a shift in some way. I really have no idea what what George is going to do with those two, with the brother-sister relationship there. But I feel like he is going to go into more of these northern Riverland / Vale / northern affairs and be in it somehow, because he's been taken into it. Like Brienne has taken him there, not because he wants to. His job was just to come up here to Riverrun and, deal with the Blackfish. So yeah, I honestly don't know where I take him, if I take him all the way north or not. I'm really interested just to see what happens with Lady Stoneheart, because I just don't think that Brienne's going to do that. Just hand him over, to her. Nikki, what do you think? I don't know.
I did a little video about this actually. So again, it's pure speculation, and I'm happy to be challenged on it. So
Give it to me.
So it's interesting what you're saying about going back to Cersei, because the last thought Jamie has about Cersei in A Dance with Dragons is he realizes he's got to go back soon, and he just doesn't want to. It's kind of like, oh God, I really don't want to do that. And then I think Brienne shows up in the next couple of pages. And I don't think Brienne would be able to go through with it. I feel like there's going to be some conflict because she's obviously sworn an oath to Cat. And to protect Sansa, etc. But that's what she's doing with Jaime now. And I feel like their bond has grown to a point where I feel like Brienne recognizes that there is a good, there is goodness in Jaime. And I wonder if Jaime is genuinely going to start asking, like, speculating, like, oh, right, okay, so we're gonna get Sansa. So what do we do with her now? How do we make sure that she's safe? And that gets Brienne thinking, like, oh, he genuinely does want to keep her safe. And I'm about to lead him into a trap where Lady Stoneheart's just going to kill him. I can't do this. So I wonder if Brienne's going to fess up or if Jaime's going to figure it out. But I don't see her walking him in there and him either not knowing or her sort of keeping a straight face. I don't think she'll be able to do it.
Yeah. Can I just real quick interject? Because I just had a thought here. Like, and this is what we do, Nikki. Sometimes we roll down these rabbit holes here.
Go for it.
So there is like there's this whole bit where like Jaime, it's like one of the best lines, and I can't quote it right now, but it's like the idea that which of the oaths do you keep? Which of the, and then she has oath keeper. And so she has this oath to Catelyn, who is dead. This is Lady Stoneheart, a vengeful spirit of her, some sort of whatever. Not necessarily that she would be breaking, I think, the oath to Catelyn. Yeah, totally different, right?
Yeah.
And I also think it goes more to her character development, her being more dynamic and saying, I get it now, Jaime. I see the choice that was put before you. This is not to fulfill this oath or whatever is not necessarily an honorable thing to do. And I think before she was caught by surprise, Brienne was caught by surprise and she's got Pod there. She's taking care of him. So she agrees to go along with this for a time. I think even if she does bring him all the way there, she could get a sense from other members that maybe this is not what they want, or maybe she just fights their way out of there. I don't know. There's going to be something that clicks and turns over. And I guess even from that moment too, I wanted to bring up the idea that a lot of you were talking about, what does Jaime think about? He thinks about returning to Cersei. And even prior to that, he's thinking about how he wants to do a better job defending Tommen and be a better commander of the Kingsguard and all that kind of stuff. He's really into that. That's really where he's at. So he could, if he, like you said, Nikki, decide, all right, we got to figure out the whole Sansa thing, go along with Brienne for a while. Or what would draw him back would be this idea of not really necessarily Cersei, but Tommen, where they're under attack. That's my job. That's my, then he's back into I got to fulfill that oath and protect it's almost like a redemption situation where he now can defend the king, because Robert didn't really need the defending. Joffrey did, but that was, right.
Yeah. Another thing, I like what you said as about Tommen, because the show sort of gives us a lot more of Tommen with the High Sparrow kind of befriending him and sort of influencing that. None of that's in the books. So so the idea that Tommen could even go down that line could be totally different. There's so many potential scenarios. If Cersei still blows up if Tommen doesn't kill himself like he does in the show, which I think Az and I are pretty big believers is not going to happen in the books. What if Tommen is like that figure that sort of realizes Cersei, if she does, say, blow up the Sept of Baelor and kills Marjorie, if it goes down that route, Tommen could say, because he's a lot younger, no, I don't like you. You just did this. Kids are, you take their toy away, they get upset. Now you're going to take his wife away. He's going to freak out and lose his mind. I don't think he's not going to kill himself. So if Jaime goes back and Tommen is there to say things to him and influence whatever, that could definitely rip them apart. And then of course there's Marcella, who's still alive right now. That's gonna change his direction too. And not that I want to shift gears, because I want to stay on that, but real quick, the language used is kind of interesting in the last little bit of Jaime's lines here. So when Brienne walks up, he doesn't just see Brienne. He scrambles to his feet and he says, "Oh, let me I'll put it up on the screen here." This one. He scrambles to his feet. "My lady, I had not thought to see you again. Gods be good. She looked 10 years older than when I saw her last." and what happened to her face, that bandage, you've been wounded, a bite. And then she gives him Oathkeeper, and he says, I found it. But it's sort of like, is he gonna, is we starting to be like, I don't know, he's looking at her, God, she looks 10 years older, and her face is like her, she's already like described in the books to be like way uglier than obviously she is on TV, because Gwendolyn Christie plays her, and she's Captain Phasma, she's freaking gorgeous. So like, is that gonna be like something too that is gonna like, maybe he doesn't find her, like, there's that like hints of attraction throughout. Is he gonna not find her that way in the books too? So I mean, we could dive into that after, but I just wanted to bring it up just since I had it up here.
Because one of the things I was going to ask Nikki is the idea. So there are theories that like that Cersei might go back to the Rock, might go back to Casterly Rock, or stay in King's Landing. That people believe different things, and it's like, what would move her there? What would take Jaime further north? Like those types of things that. Because you can go almost any, like, there's so many different directions that you can go, which is also why I think it takes forever to write a story like that. I think George knows where it's going to go, but like at the same point in time that he's got a hint at those things, and he's letting people kind of figure it out. The foreshadowings there, the breadcrumbs are all there, right? So for me, I like to think about what would take Cersei. It would maybe be like if Jaime does go back to King's Landing, it's him saying, no, we're under siege, or if there's a way to get her out or do whatever. He's got that tactical mind that would, if they're overrun and there is no way, family first, save people if he does that. But if he's also not there, she could be taken prisoner. There's a ton of different things that could happen. What do you think? Any thoughts on where they might go? Like just Cersei or Jaime, or kind of sticking on those two?
Do you know, that's the problem. There are too many variables. It depends on what Griff or Aegon, whichever way we want to call him, depends on what his plan is. Because he's just landed at Storm's End with half an army. And I do wonder what, we know what Dawn are going to do. They've been sort of playing the long game. We know that Doran's just found out that Aegon's alive. I want to know what the Tyrells are going to do, because they're traditionally Targaryen loyalists. So that's I think that's going to be the deciding factor. So I went down a rabbit hole on one of my videos, and it was to do with, if Tyrion was still alive, how would he handle that situation? So yeah, I'm interested to see what the Tyrells do, because they're meant to be loyal to the Lannisters, but we know their loyalty is quite easily bought. So yeah. I don't really know what else to say on it, because we could speculate for hours.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a handful of characters like that. Because even using like the framework of the show, it's like, okay, like just for example, like, okay, Jon's probably going to get resurrected. Stannis and Ramsay are going to do their thing, but then you've got a handful that are not anywhere close to where they are in the show. Like Sansa. It's like, she can go in tons of different directions. Young Griff doesn't exist. Jaime, oddly, is actually where he's at in the show before we go off book. He goes to River Run, and then he goes back to King's Landing. But part of that is actually a kind of cool scene in the show, I thought. And I remember the trailer getting hyped for it was when Jaime shows up at like the Sept of Baelor, and he's got like this Lannister army, like, I'm about to take over. I'm about to we're about to take over. And of course that is totally changed. So the faith also seems less powerful in the book than they did in the show. They definitely did a good job of making them sort of like a 1.5 season really villain. So with that, if Jaime is going to go ultimately to meet up with Lady Stoneheart, which I think is possible, and likely, because obviously Brienne lies and says that the hound's gonna kill her. We don't know. The Hound, I think, is the gravedigger. I do think the Hound is going to come in and actually be part of something to deal with the faith. but that's not going to be Jaime's arc, then yeah, I think your other scenarios are Jaime goes to Storm's End first, or maybe Storm's End is over by the time he's done with Lady Stoneheart, and then he has to go down and deal with the Faith / see what's going on with Cersei. And his arc, I think, is going to entirely depend on whether Marcella is alive and whether Tommen is alive when he does show up to King's Landing, because I do still think we will get that sort of confrontation like we saw in the show, where he's like, okay, Cersei, I'm out, like I'm done with you. I don't know that we're gonna have a dragon pit and all this other stuff, and like all this other stuff that happens first. But I do think that he will go down there and Cersei will kick him out, assuming Cersei lives through through the next book, and like young Griff doesn't say like take over that, and we just move into more of a it's now Daenerys and young Griff, Jon Snow story.
Yeah, I think too. George said, I don't know where this was. Maybe it was an interview or something that he did, because we got to finally see in the show Casterly Rock. So we had a character. I think he might take us there, whether it's through, because isn't Jane Westerling heading back that way? I think at some point. Yeah, she's heading towards there. So maybe we'll see it through a different character. But there's some speculation that we might see one of our Lannister folk over there, because we never have really been there, and it's a place we've heard so much about that I think it'd be cool to explore in the book. And I just don't know which character he does it through, though.
Yeah, because in the show the only time we see Casterly Rock is when they pull a double fake, right? And they okay, we're gonna go take Casterly Rock. Well, we're not here, so deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening at all.
Right.
Okay. Well, do you guys have any more? Anything else on Jaime you guys want to before we hit just go hardcore into Cersei?
Well, I don't. The only thing is, and I've not really done a whole lot of looking into it here recently, but like all that stuff that happens, you remember all of those like the weird visions and dreams that he has on the werewood stuff, like that stuff's kind of crazy too. When you look at that to see maybe what he's dealing with internally and who he's, because I looked it up and I could be wrong, but the person wearing the Hound's helm right now isn't I think it's either Lemon Cloak. It was that Biter, right? Or Rogue?
No, I think it is Rourke. I think it is Lemon Cloak.
Okay, so I think he's like wearing it now. So like these are some of the folk that he's going to go back and see. There's been great speculation as to like who is Lemon Cloak. That like literally the theories. I can't even keep track. Matt, we did like this whole thing with like who is this the secret identity thing that we did, Matt, like a couple weeks back. So because I guess we think of these characters who I often think of the characters who were around during the time of Robert's Rebellion and could tell us more about the Tower of Joy, could give us insights or secrets about things that happened during the year 280, or 283 or whatever it was, when all that stuff was kind of going down in King's Landing. So I'm interested to see if he runs across a character like that. Like if Lemon Cloak is secretly somebody else and he is right now wearing the Hound's helm, and that's maybe where Brienne is taking Jaime, then we have
maybe she could even think it's the Hound.
Ooh.
Yeah, so because we don't know, right? I mean, that's that he does take that, and it's Thoros who says no. You probably shouldn't. So it just, to me, but people speculate that he was a former, like he has this Lemon Cloak that was once a White Cloak, right? That he was once a Kingsguard member, possibly. That's a theory. And then you have Jaime, a Kingsguard guy, going possibly to see someone like Lemon Cloak. I don't know if those all are going to pay off. And this is where you get into the crazy tinfoil stuff, Nikki, which is what we wade into. And it's just a sea of tinfoil. But I'm all for it. I'm like, okay, maybe there is something there, because this is a guy like who's been there, speckled in with the Brotherhood, and has seen a lot, witnessed a lot, and who knows, maybe he's more significant than we think. And just the fact that he has that the Hound's helm is interesting, and Brienne's taking him there. So I don't know, just thoughts, random stuff. We don't have to take it anywhere. It's just we sometimes throw out those bits for people to go read it again, go experience it, and say, yeah, is there something there, or could you go that route? Because it's kind of fun to speculate.
Okay, let's dive into Cersei. Okay, so this is like where things like I mean, she's such a like huge player. So ultimately, like, you know, we know she does her walk of shame. That's like the big moment. Still dealing with the Kettle Blacks. They're still there. Lady Diana, right? Cersei's going through like a lot of emotional sort of stuff going on with all of this. And she's introduced to her new Kingsguard champion, Robert Strong. And then so finally, Cersei dines with Tommen's regent, her uncle Kevin, who has been trying to repair the damage Cersei has done. She requests that Lady Diana Merryweather attend again. Her innocence is proved. Although Kevin has no news of Jaime, Cersei seems certain of his safety, believing she would know if he were dead. Later that evening, Varys has Kevin and Pycelle murdered to keep the realm in chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is a crazy, I mean, just, you know, Cersei is let loose here. I did something, when was this? Just the other day on the whole Merryweather situation. Matt,
Right.
you and I were talking about that.
Yes.
And the company that Cersei keeps, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong about this, but it does seem like, yeah, that they might turn on her, or that there's something else going on. There's a great theory that I never even knew about, and I'm not going to go in detail on it, but that, how do you say her name? Is it Taina? Merryweather?
Yeah.
Taina, yeah.
Just roll with it. He probably says it 5 different ways in the audiobook, so it's fine.
Yeah, I have no idea. So anyway, she's the one who's like sleeping with Cersei, you know, and really kind of just close to her, but she never brings her child, Russell Merryweather. She never brings him or whatever. And I stumbled across that awesome theory that maybe it was a Robert bastard, that maybe he's a Robert bastard. And somebody went all the way back into, there's a reason why she wouldn't want, you know, the seed is strong and wouldn't want to see him, and that we might see him later. This is what George does, right? It's very odd that numerous times she refuses to bring the child. Why? And it seems like, is it Orton, her husband, possibly gay, and wasn't, you know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff with the people who are around Cersei also being, where they bought, do they work for Littlefinger, like the Kettle Blacks at one point? Do they work for the Tyrells, Varys? I feel that's the other piece that's kind of hard to sift out, is who was working for who around Cersei, who's actually loyal to her. And really, they want to put family first. And that seems like the smartest thing that the Lannisters could do, which is to trust only their family. But then the way they treated Tyrion was so awful that it's ironic that he ends up being a part of their great undoing, if you will. So yeah, I don't know, just some random thoughts on Cersei. But yeah, Nikki, what are your thoughts about, like, just I don't know, maybe the people around her, or I know you kind of said that.
Well, I think one of the big parts of Cersei's undoing is her refusal to pay off the Iron Bank debts, because they just turn on the entirety of Westeros and say, right, no more debts. Everyone needs to pay up now, and everyone is suffering as a result of it. So I can imagine it doesn't matter who you are, or you know, what your titles are, etc. It's the Iron Bank who calls the shots. So I think there's going to be a lot of hate for her. Anyone who might have once been an ally, who's suffering as a result of that. Yeah, I think it's all a bit up in the air. I think that was such a bad move from her. It's gold at the end of the day. Everything comes down to gold. So any allies she thought she might have had, it depends how they've done as a result of her actions with that. Yeah, I do think it is sort of heavily implied that everyone around her is just telling her what she wants to hear anyway. So I can't really think, now that there's not going to be a Kevin, I cannot really think of anyone, perhaps Jaime, who's really going to be on her side for the right reasons because they care about her.
Yeah, the other person that's interesting, she has Sir Robert Strong, right? He's right.
Can I?
And then
Yeah.
Yes.
Qyburn.
And
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk. Well, I'm gonna talk more about Sir Robert Strong because I'll dive into the text. But yeah, go ahead. I didn't know if you were gonna dive into him or not.
Oh no, I just was saying like that.
Oh,
You're looking
sorry.
for allies around him, looking for or her, sorry, around Cersei, and trying to figure out like who are those people that she could still would go to and confide in, because the Merryweathers like fled, and there was this idea of bringing them back perhaps by Kevin, but they're gone. That looks suspicious, so as close as they were to her, it was all an information grab and all plotting to kind of, imprison or get Cersei in trouble with the faith. I mean, there's a double cross going on there. So yeah, I think she has to look for her allies, and we're trying to figure out like who is that. And I think what the show did, again, hate to say this, but they kind of it's the full on throw your armor on. Like it was a visually representative. Like she almost has like she's armored up in the sense that she's not letting anybody in. No one's coming into her bedchamber. She's not making marriage alliances. She's not doing that. So she's going to really harden up, I feel like. And that's something that even to the point where even Jaime couldn't maybe break through that if he did come back. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, she's doing stuff. I like to bring up these little houses sometimes. House Stokeworth, right? So you had Lully's, you had Sir Bronn who's going over there. She's got this whole plot with Falsey Stokeworth to like kill Bronn and do different stuff there. So yeah, like who's going to inherit? Because the big piece with Nikki said the bank, the Iron Bank is not backing them. They can't buy the food that they need. The people will turn on Cersei, and this is what Tyrion sort of realized is that's why you needed House Rosby and you needed the Stokeworth family, those surrounding houses. Like George is really good at making it realistic, and that like we need their harvest, we need food and resources and things like that, and that plays into this. It's something that makes it a lot more believable and more politically kind of stirring, I guess. So yeah, I just think it's interesting to keep an eye on all of those little houses that are people that she might turn to or that have turned against her because she's plotting to kill Bronn and the likes of, like she's distancing her. She like allies that she could have had. They're not following. They're not winning, or she's done something, and then whoever takes their place is like not a fan of Cersei's. So
yeah, as it's so perfect that you bring that up because this is the point I was going to dive into. So let me dive into the text here. So first of all, this chapter, by the way, and just re-looking over it, is where George R.R. Martin shows to everyone that he is like an absolute god when it comes to writing, because it's insane. So the chapter, Cersei's final chapter of A Dance with Dragons starts, and she's like on the last night of her imprisonment. This is the like walk of shame, everything. She's going to all have guards. They'll keep the crowds away. No one will be allowed to touch me. The High Sparrow had promised me as much. Even though then she's afraid, right? And she's beginning to pace her cell, restless as the caged lions that lived in the bowels of Casterly Rock when she was a girl, the legacy of her grandfather's time. She and Jaime used to dare each other to climb into the cage, right? But the whole point is she's thinking all of these things. I'll have guards. They'll protect me. No one's going to like hurt me. And then she's thinking about like lions and like, being a Lannister and all of this stuff. Well, she goes on the walk of shame. It obviously goes a different direction than she thinks. And she's humiliated. And it's just like, terrible event for her. Justified maybe, but, terrible, like terrible event. However you want to view it. And then at the very end, the way this chapter ends is after she's done this entire thing, is no, her savior was real, 8 feet tall or maybe taller, and it's Robert Strong, this monster character that came from Qyburn, right? But still in a way sort of her design is now like her number one ally, is this like monstrous creature who's like probably bound through some sort of weird like blood magic science whatever to Cersei, is her like number one ally after she starts the chapter thinking like, I still live in this world where I'm the queen and everyone has to bow to me. And then she's forced to face reality that no, you're human just like everyone else. And now after going through all of that, and she's probably like hateful and angry and going through every emotion imaginable, she's given, Robert Strong. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do now. Everyone who's ever wronged me, like, get ready. Like,
Yeah.
get ready. Like this, yeah. So I mean, it's full on Mad Queen is probably like what's coming
Isn't
next. Nikki, what do you
Robert
think?
controlled by Qyburn?
I
Or
don't
that sort of
know.
directed? Because the Qyburn's an interesting one because he seems to be very, very open to Cersei's madness. And I wonder if that's just simply because she's the only one who's allowed him to do it. And if that suddenly stops for whatever reason, how quickly would he be to turn on her? If that kind of like makes sense. And I do wonder if he's the one in control of Robert Strong or sort of directing him. Is that going to go wrong for her at some point?
Yeah.
It could.
Another big thing with that, and that's a really good point, Nikki, like that people wonder where Qyburn came from and who is he loyal to, and like who is he maybe working for? Did he have him? I mean, is he just some wayward agent of, I don't know, like not chaos necessarily, but like what are his goals and his motivations? Is someone paying him? Is he working for someone? He's this disgraced maester who now is experimenting and doing all these crazy stuff. And we see him at a scary place in Harrenhal, right? And then he ends up, being there, helping out with Tywin's, when Shay is found and all that kind of stuff. So he's just there. She just sort of like brings him in. It's almost like one of the mistakes that I think she makes is she has so much mistrust of the people right in front of her, right around her, that if you're new and if you're in the back, she's because that's what Qyburn really was. She like brings him in out of nowhere and just sort of like gets some loyalty pledges from him, and then he's with her. But where did that guy really come from? And is he really? How long is he gonna stay close to Cersei or power? Or because I think also he just wants to maybe do his thing. And if whoever he thinks is going to allow him to continue his experiments and do his work, right? Maybe he's going to.
I do wonder if it is as simple as that. But yeah, if it got to a point where someone else said, "Oh, I can give you a much better laboratory. I can give you X, Y, and Z. All you've got to do is turn him on Cersei." Okay, fine. Could it be as straightforward as that with him? Because, like you say, where do his loyalties truly lie?
Yeah,
and just don't know.
Right, we don't know. And another thing, the wordplay, the color association around Cersei is all from the get-go. And I truly believe this. Like, I know that there's these breadcrumbs that are laid in like A Clash of Kings, and then they pay off at the end of that book. But what George has shown, or what I believe he's doing, is that like we think we've seen the end of something, like a prophecy, or we've seen okay. Wildfire, right? Cersei has all of this. The green, the emerald, the black, all the different color wordplay around her suggests that she's into wildfire and has some sort of connection with it, right? And it's like something that Tyrion then sort of takes and they use it to defend the city. But then later on in the show, shows us that she's obsessed with it and she uses it as a tool later to destroy the Sept of Baelor. So if the Robert Strong situation doesn't work out, it's one of those things that like George could come back to that. Like, remember I told you I showed you in the beginning that she's used this tool before. When all else fails, when people around her, agents or whatever, fail, she became obsessed with this, and it's a tool that she might use to destroy, wreck the city, do something before young Griff comes in, like if the Tyrells are defeated, or maybe something happens with her son. I mean, if the Sand Snakes do end up killing Myrcella, or Myrcella kills herself, she could just say Dunzo and wildfire this whole thing and be kind of done with it. So I don't think that's done. I think people think that her this whole wildfire piece was over because it was over after the Battle of the Blackwater Bay. And Matt has found a lot of suggestions that like when George makes a connection that we think like sort of I don't know, the saddest sound is the bells. Was the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like that Matt kind of figured out the idea that the ghost of High Heart was talking about the Red Wedding, and everyone says, well, the saddest sound was the little bells, the innocent who was killed that Catelyn kills. But then all along, there's this other element that the saddest sound could also be the bells, the episode, the bells that was ringing when King's Landing was destroyed. And that George does that kind of stuff. Now, I mean, the show is the showism, but like, could he be doing more of that kind of stuff with the Lannister characters who have been around since the beginning? I guess.
I think a lot of times we view prophecies and we sort of think once one lines up with something like a lot of the stuff that Patchface says. It's like, okay, well, that he says at the beginning of like book 2, and then a lot of it could die directly into the Battle of the Blackwater. Well, I don't know. It could, but it could also reference something we haven't even seen yet. That like, and it's almost like George, who's like the master manipulator, is saying, oh, I actually set you up to think it was going to be this, but it's actually this other thing, like down the line, because that's what he does all the time. I mean, that's what he does. Like his entire arc is like, I'm going to set you up here, but no, it's actually like a triple fake. He's like, got quadruple agents and everything like that. So yeah, so okay, so real quick, just one more thing here on Cersei, then we can move on. So as again, because like what you guys are saying here about this, I just wanted to this last little bit of the chapter 2, the final Cersei chapter, again, is as she's walking, right, she's thinking about all this stuff, and then it says, no, her savior was real, 8 feet tall or maybe taller, with legs as thick around as trees. He had a chest worthy of a plow horse and shoulders that would not disgrace an ox. His armor was plate steel, enameled white and bright as a maiden's hopes, and worn over gilded mail. Remember, this is all, everything that George sort of writes through a character's point of view is like incredibly important. She thinks she's dreaming, and then she herself is given a white cloak. Like Tommen names her, Tommen, her precious little boy, had named her a champion to the Kingsguard. So is she in a like a better place strategically after the Walk of Shame? Because she has to go through this terrible ordeal, and then she's given a white cloak as a champion of the Kingsguard, and she's given Robert Strong, who she views as like her savior. And then, as the line you say here too, I mean, this is just George doing it. Cersei never saw where Qyburn came from.
Yeah,
of course. I know. It's of course it's literally him. Just she didn't see where he walked out of this time, but nobody ever saw where he actually came from.
Matt. That okay, sorry, Nikki. This is the kind of stuff that we like freak out about, right?
No, it's cool.
Right. Cersei never saw where Qyburn came from. None of us know where freaking Qyburn came from. And that's what I'm talking about, George. That's why I love this series, and it's freaking great, Well, let me ask Nikki a question too about this. Like, do you think, just a couple things, and you don't ever have to commit to anything, because I'm super non-committal. I'm sort of like, you know what, this could go any one direction, which is why I love reading multiple theories. So, I love theorists who, God bless them, they're willing to like lay down in writing, I believe it's going to happen this way, then this way, then this way, then this way. I'm not very good at doing that. I like to like think of 100 different ways it could go. But do you think that, a couple things, the Sept of Baelor, do you think Cersei will get to a point where she might use that? Because Matt said she's in this position where she has a champion, she's back protected, she will never let herself go probably near the faith again. Any thoughts on that? Like would we see something, or maybe not even that, but just something like it?
I don't think we're done with the wildfire at all. She'll use that, I think.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the Sept of Baelor, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if it went down that way, and I don't think it would feel out of character for her to do that. Yeah, it's just what steps she takes to sort of get to that decision. That's what I would be interested to see. But if it's not the Sept, it will be something else. She will 100% blow something up. And she already did it with the Tower of the Hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not beneath her by any means.
Right. And what is it true that wasn't she the one doesn't she originally kind of amassing the wildfire? Is that right? In Clash of Kings, I think, because remember, Tyrion figures out that Cersei that Cersei is doing that, and then he's like, okay, actually not a bad idea. Like, we could use that. She's crazily amassing wildfire. That's like her. That's not like anyone else really coming up with that. So
isn't it? Does Lancel tell him? Doesn't he? Is it Lancel who's the one who tells him when he threatens Lancel, and he's like, "Oh, okay. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna have that," because he wants to wind her up, basically, and he'll make good use out of it. So yeah, it is Cersei who was gathering all of that for what reason we don't know, but yeah, just
sort of a wild thing. You think like, did she have any strategy in how she was going to use that? Because it's Tyrion who comes up with the strategy. she had something else in mind, which I think is something she'll go back to later and say, you know what, it's time to go back to plan A. And
yeah, because right now, I would say it feels like Cersei, because Cersei's final line is when she looks at Robert Strong, she says, "Yes, oh yes," is like the final, like her final line. Like, God, here we go. So, I think there's a few directions that she could go, because at this point, I'm pretty sure in the show Marcella's dead, right?
In the show,
she is in the show.
Yeah, in the show she's dead. Tommen is still alive, but Tommen's kind of intertwined with the faith, because she hasn't blown up the Sept of Baelor yet. So obviously, we can just dive into these two characters quickly, like Tommen and Marcella, because it kind of ties in ultimately to what's going to happen with Cersei. I'm kind of a believer in. I think that Robert Strong is going to go down in Clegane Bowl, which I think that the Hound is like the groundskeeper or whatever at the Gravedigger, and he's like at a monastery or whatever. And I think that like the faith could choose him as a champion, since he's like tied in maybe right now with the faith, and then we could have the Game Bowl happen earlier than it happens in the show, and maybe like they do have a trial by combat. If that were to happen and Cersei were to lose, then it could be like, okay, now Cersei has to go to the Sept of Baelor as her punishment. She could still blow it up, but some of that's going to depend on Marcella and Tommen. I think ultimately to where George would want this event to happen after this and this, because I don't think Tommen's jumping out of a window and killing himself at all. And Ez and I've talked about the possibility, man, it seems like Marcella, she's still so important, because she could like get further entwined with the Dorne. I mean, there's so many different angles that she could go in than her just getting killed, because they already maimed her. And so I think if George was going to kill her, he would have already done it. So I think the show is like, well, we just got to figure something out. So I mean, Nick, like, what do you kind of think of like Marcella and Tommen?
Tommen, I'm not sure, because isn't he like 8 or 9 years old?
Yeah, he's young
at this point in the books. Yeah, he's a baby. I really don't know, because he's so impressionable. Bless him. I don't really know where Tommen would go. I think going back to what you guys said earlier about maybe Jaime going back to King's Landing, I think it would depend on, like, I really like what you've just said about Cersei losing a trial by combat, because that just pushes her further into desperation, and she does stupid things when she's desperate. So would Jaime go and take Tommen out of King's Landing, knowing that something was going to happen? Marcella, I don't know, because was it Arianne Martell was planning to crown her and start a war?
Yes.
So, because the Dornish plot is a bit up in the air now, because they've just learned that Aegon's alive and is back in Storm's End. So I'm just kind of like branching out. It's really tough. I suppose it depends on sort of how. What's the word I'm looking for? How absorbed Marcella is with the Dornish, and with the Martells, because I think she's going to have to pick a side soon, definitely.
Yeah, and the one bit we were trying to think, this sucks that we try to do this, but we try to match like if there is a suicide among like Cersei's children, if it weren't Tommen, we were like, well, could it be Marcella, right, Matt? I mean, we kind of thought maybe.
Yeah, we talked about that once. The idea that maybe
like Prince Trystane, if he
gets killed, maybe like even Cersei has him killed or something, like, and then
that was a plan.
There was a plot already, to kill him. Yeah.
And so then she like really loves him, and then it's like Cersei. To me, that's more, especially book Cersei. I think she, like, Tommen is there, but it's really like her daughter is the one like that. You feel like there's like that's she really, when Tyrion sends her away, it's like she's so much more like bloodthirsty at him than she is in the show. I think she is in the show too. Yes. It's just we just don't get to see more of it as you do in the books. But the idea, I could see that going, because Tommen, I just don't see an 8-year-old kid jumping out of a window like to kill him. It just, I mean, I'm not saying he's gonna live. I think there's a lot of other ways to kill him, but I just don't see it being that way. And I think if you did flip it around, I could see Cersei going even that much more mad, where she thought she was doing the right thing for her daughter and her daughter killed herself. But again, her daughter could also be the younger and more beautiful queen that ultimately is the reason Cersei gets like taken out.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right. There's another bit too, just with this whole poisoning. So again, Myrcella in the show was poisoned, but Tommen right now is supposedly being poisoned. We don't know like he's a food taster. One of the Kingsguard members is tasting his food and it looks like he's getting sick. So again, Varys, who knows what freaking is that him or is that someone else working from the shadows? So the poisoning seems to be happening right now. An attempt, anyways, on Tommen. There's possibly a way in which Myrcella could commit suicide. And again, all of this stuff further just drives to the madness maybe of Cersei. And as Nikki said, just being more desperate and wanting, grasping for straws, if you will. So it'll be,
Okay. We'll take a final character here. And now this is a real gear shift. We're going to talk about Tyrion, right? Who's on the total opposite side of the world. So
God.
And this one right, so Tyrion, I mean, he's over in Essos doing his whole thing, right? So I'll just read the last little bit from the wiki here. So while aboard the Salazori Cohoran, Tyrion makes the acquaintance of Makoro, who sees visions in flames. Tyrion, Penny, and Jorah are captured by a Yunkai slaver and are brought by Yezanin Zaquas. They are instructed by his overseer on how to treat their new master. Tyrion and Penny are forced to perform a mock joust in the fighting pits of Meereen, not knowing that they were to be eaten by lions at the end of the show. Daenerys Targaryen, for whom the show was staged, learns of their impending fate and stops before the lions are released. After their new master dies of the blood flux, the trio escapes. Tyrion arranges for the three to join a sellsword company, the Second Sons, under the command of Brown Ben Plum, by promising the company the wealth of Casterly Rock. While the Sons' current contract is to fight Daenerys, Tyrion hopes to win them to her side. So, Nikki, Tyrion in Winterwater. Now, this was obviously like a total shift of gear from everybody else because this is all Essos and really what's going on with Daenerys. That's where we're at too. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about Tyrion up till now is he's worked out who Jon Connington and Aegon, he's worked out who Griff and young Griff are, and he was advising them pretty much. So I'll be interested to see what happens if he meets Daenerys and what he kind of divulges to her, because Daenerys is very much dead set on the throne being hers, as Aegon will be as well. So is Tyrion going to play the two off against each other? Because does he really care what happens to his sister at this point? That's what I want to know. Whose side is he going to be on? Because he's clearly not on the Lannister side. It is a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would argue. I think Tyrion at this point, and Tyrion's also like not necessarily going mad, but Tyrion's definitely having like a shift in character.
Yes,
certainly in A Dance with Dragons. And he's not necessarily like, I wouldn't say he's like full on evil, but he's definitely going darker and darker. Like it feels like that he's definitely going down this path. Ultimately, for me, Tyrion's gonna have to. I know that he's gonna have at least one more meetup with Cersei and Jaime, and I don't know how that's gonna go, but he definitely has sort of unfinished business with them. So he's gonna come over with Daenerys somehow. And for me, that tells me that Daenerys and Euron stuff probably isn't happening. Like, I don't think that like any stuff that could potentially happen with Euron, because I think he's sort of a block for Daenerys to get over to Westeros. Like, it seems like he's over there and they're going to meet up and do something. That might all just take place in in Westeros. We could just get like a full-on crazy like mega war going on in King's Landing, and like the final thing where it's literally like Euron's there trying to take over, young Griff's there trying to take over, Cersei's trying to hold the fort down, Daenerys is there, and it's just like the war of every king imaginable, including the Night King. Why not? It's just in King's Landing, like everybody's fighting everybody, and whoever wins. It's just free for all. But so Tyrion for me has to come back over and has to have one final showdown with Cersei and Jaime, just for moments. It doesn't have to be a showdown, but just there's gonna be moments there. But is that the final book? Because I guess so much of it depends on, is Daenerys sailing back? Will Daenerys step on Westeros soil by the end of this book, by the middle of this book? Or does she just set sail and then she doesn't show up until the next book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, I'm just thinking about Tyrion here. As you say, Matt, he's going to go have that confrontation. What is his role going to be? What can he offer? I mean, right now he's with Brown Ben Plum and trying to convince him. I mean, maybe Brown Ben Plum's he's already done sort of has been working for Dany, right? Or something. Explains why they switch sides, and then Tyrion's convincing him to come back over. Dany's out of the city. The Winds of Winter chapter, which we haven't really talked a lot about those in here. We just kind of stick right to what we have, because they could be changing. But it is suggested that they are defending that city, and I think Dany will come back and reward those who did well or who worked in her service. I think if she were there and met Tyrion originally, it would be kind of like a no-go, maybe, just based upon name and all that kind of stuff. But if he does something and proves himself, and other members can kind of say, hey, Tyrion's done well here, and as Nikki was saying, like, provides information about Jon Connington and young Griff and Aegon, all that kind of stuff, that could be really cool to see how, they're going to, it makes him more valuable. Because my other big thing is, I think Marwyn the Mage is on his way over to kind of be like an advisor to her. And so Tyrion likes Varys. He's been with Illyrio. He's actually seen quite a bit of this other big plot that's he's starting to get some of the pieces. The Syvas game is very important because he's a master player of that. And I think he's going to start to kind of figure a lot of this out, and he's going to be pro Dany. But then it's just like, can they do the ultimate pack, the ultimate merger of young Griff or Aegon and Dany? Is this possible? Can they pull this off? Or is she going to be so turned off by another marriage proposal, and she's just going to go full dragon and say, no, screw this, I'm doing my thing? And is Tyrion going to get caught up in that whole, I guess, whirlwind of trying to make this happen, seeing what's good for her, but she's so gone, like so far gone, maybe, that she just says, no, I'm going to come in and rule with fire and blood. She might just come in and do that. So I don't know how the whole Jaime/Cersei interaction is going to go, but I just see him being in the mix of all of that. And I think, we're not going to get like a Jon Snow, Dany kind of thing romance, necessarily. That kind of stuff.
I think so.
No.
That's just show stuff right there. So that's where I think, like, maybe she does have someone who, if it's this young Griff character, but if they've deceived her in some way, right? If they sold her to the Dothraki. They did not give her. They said they were going to give Viserys this army, but they also sent Viserys. He went with Khal Drogo, and secretly Illyrio had another Targaryen that he didn't tell her about. You know what I mean? Like, this could break down either way. It could be very fracturing, actually, too, just depending on how they present this information. Like Jon Connington, all this stuff. That's going to be really, really tough for Dany to hear. In the show, there's this whole bit where when she learns that people like Jon Snow more than her, look at that, I'm an imposter, I'm whatever, they're propping him up. And now young Griff is already on my turf trying to go after my throne. I don't know that it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to shake out. I think that would kind of maybe be upsetting for her. I don't know. Any thoughts on that stuff, Nikki? Just
that's, I think, like you say, that's what it's going to come down to, how Dany reacts to learning about Aegon, because I think she mentions him in earlier books, and talks about, like, I probably would have married him if I didn't marry Viserys. So is that going to be suggested to her, and how receptive is she going to be to that? Because like you say, how is she going to react to, hang on, so you guys all knew about this and you never said anything. You just let me go off and do this. And now you're saying that the throne isn't even mine. So I think what Tyrion does is going to be very heavily dependent on how Daenerys reacts to learning all this information, that she's not the last Targaryen and not even the real heir, technically.
Mm-hmm.
But is Tyrion going to play those two off against each other, or is he going to sort of suggest some kind of union between the two? That's where I can see him going, to then eventually come back to Westeros to have that interaction with Jaime and Cersei.
Yeah. You know, it could be interesting because, so I had to look up some history on the Second Sons, because obviously they're not the Golden Company, but because that's, I think, the first sort of company, you know, sellsword company we think of, because, and then of course their ties to the Blackfires and all that stuff. But the Second Sons, Egg Bittersteel did serve with them for a bit before he left to found the Golden Company. Oberyn Martell served with them for a little bit. It's kind of interesting, really. However, I'm kind of thinking, maybe, what if Tyrion learns about like more of the sort of Blackfire lineage that's tied to the Golden Company, and then he begins to piece together, wait, maybe young Griff isn't actually the son of Rhaegar. Maybe he's a false prince. So then that could tie a few things together. Tyrion could know he's false and pretend to tell Dany, or this could be how Dany learns kind of the idea through Tyrion that young Griff isn't the real deal. Maybe the Mummer's dragon, right, which is part of her prophecy. And so you could go down that, and then Tyrion is the one who sort of advises her on this. And he could lie to her and tell her, like, hey, no, he's the real deal. Maybe her and Griff, and he proposes this marriage, then maybe young Griff is the one who betrays her for love. So there's definitely some ways that Tyrion could actually be that sort of that hinge in a handful of those ideas and theories. Mm-hmm. I can see as searching now. Well, I can see the screens, the in his eyes.
Because you bring up a really cool point, that the historical, like historically, you got the Tattered Prince connected. You've got Oberyn, you just mentioned, Dorne, and then Bittersteel was there and then founded the Golden Company. Right. So it's this offshoot from the Second Sons, and they actually have kind of a bitter, not opinion, like they almost jealous of the Golden Company,
because they're not as good.
They're competing, they're kind of competing. So that will be interesting to see if she gets what she looks like she's going to get. Like Dany has the Second Sons, as you said, and then the Golden Company now belong to or are working for young Griff, Aegon. That's going to be interesting. It's maybe something that George is doing symbolically, or trying to hide clues in there as to what's going to happen. And you said a good word is hinge, that like Tyrion, it could hinge this either way, right? He could either bring it together, bring it apart. Yeah, interesting.
Cool. So. Okay. All right. Well, I think is there any other Lannister left besides Lancel? I just think he's kind of gonna, I don't know. He's
screw Lancel.
He's probably gonna die.
He's not in a good way.
he's just probably gonna die. That's where we're at on that. So cool. Okay. Did anybody have any final thoughts on any Lannisters? Anything else we wanted to dive into? Ez, Nikki, anything?
I don't think so. I think it's like you guys have said. I think the problem is it's just so many different ways it could go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just happy, Matt, that we have a Lannister loyalist here among us who's pushing for their arc, because I did what George wanted us to do, which was to hate them. Right. Mm-hmm. And then now through Jaime and Tyrion, I'm like, let's go a little bit. You know what I mean? He does such a good job of that. I'm like, I hate these guys, hate them. And then right away, I'm a little bit, me was like, well, maybe that Tyrion guy's not too bad. And then
Tyrion's great.
Right. I just, what an author wants to take you on that journey. I totally bought into, and he totally did that. It's perfect, because Jaime later on, we're like, you know what? Actually, I know you pushed Bran out that window, but I'm in.
Yeah, well, Jamie won for me because I watched the show and then I dove back into the books. But Jamie won of A Storm of Swords was where I fell in love with the books because first of all, A Storm of Swords, I don't know, it's pretty much widely considered to be the best book in the series. I think it is. Our good friend Sir Jimmy, who runs a just fantasy book thing, he says is like his favorite book of all time. He says it's like an absolute god tier sort of like fantasy book because for me, the second you dive into A Storm of Swords and it starts with Jamie, this character who's been sort of off screens, who's been totally portrayed as a villain the entire time up to it, and then you get like his first chapter, it's like, oh man, this is just so good.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, it's a good book. And just before we let Nikki go, I wanted to ask her just a couple of questions. I know you're probably like, guys, when can we take a pee break here? Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm sitting here going like, oh my god, but anyways, real quick. So, do you have a favorite character? Like out of the whole series, is there one? I know that we've mentioned Lannisters. Is there one of them in particular? And then also, is there any like not that we have to dive into the theory or anything at all, but like, are there any theories or predictions that you've heard or read or come across or that your own that you're really like, I really like this idea or whatever? Because for me, one of my favorites has always been Lady Stoneheart, Beric Dondarrion, the Brotherhood Without Banners. All that I've been fascinated by that piece, and so I really like it. And anytime I get like a Lady Stoneheart theory, I'm into it. I wanna like dive down that a bit more. Everyone loves Jon Snow, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So
Jamie's my favorite character for the exact reasons that you guys have just outlined. You start off hating him because he is he doesn't have his own point of view chapters. You are seeing him through the eyes of the good guys. And then when you start to hear his narrative and you're like, oh God, right. Okay. I kind of, what you did was not okay, but I kind of get it now. Nothing he's ever done is ever sort of self-centered. He's always acting in the interest of other people. He's never really done anything for his own self-interests, and that's really interesting to look at for someone who's perceived to be a villain. I will say I wasn't a massive fan of Tyrion in the books. I think he was just very much that sort of ruthless military sort of character. The minute Charles Dance came on screen, that was it. Like Tyrion became my favorite immediately. And it just changed the way that I looked at him in the book. So Jamie and Tyrion, definitely. If mad theories, yeah, okay. I
know on the spot, kind of, but
yeah, no, it's cool. I wonder, is Lady Stoneheart going to be the one to resurrect Jon Snow?
Oh,
because Rob named him as his heir. So at this point, I mean, I suppose she will know that Sansa's alive, whether she believes it or not. She's desperate, and she, is she going to go up to Castle Black to kind of? Is there a way that she can get Jon Snow, find out that he's dead? She has the power with the Brotherhood to resurrect him. Is it going to be her fulfilling Rob's final order? If that makes sense.
Wow.
Wow. So real quick.
So clearly Nikki's coming. So clearly Nikki's coming back at some point, so we can dive down that theory.
Ez is the kiss of fire, kiss of life.
Right. One of the things we joke about is that Ez always brings up, we call it back to Lady Stoneheart because he views her as like the key to everything. Like,
it's super important, and it, like you said, it's a really cool thing. I mean, Melisandre, if she doesn't, or there's dissuaded in some way, or gets moved off of the. Who knows? They put them on ice. I mean, the ice preserves, and then, you bring down this life kiss, this whatever that Beric gave to her. By God, and they did that whole thing with Beric Dondarrion in the show. They took him as far as the wall. So who knows? Maybe that is something, an arc that Lady Stoneheart goes down, or I don't know. That's brill.
There's just too much. In Kat's chapters, especially when she talks about how much she dislikes Jon Snow, there's just too much of that. It's talked about too much for someone that she shouldn't really care about. She just has this loathing, and her objection when Rob said, "I'm going to legitimize him. He's Jon Stark now, and he is my heir." And she, she didn't like it. She wasn't going to, tell the king no in front of all his men. I just think that would be perfect if it was her.
It would.
To be the one to do it.
God, it would.
Awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Nikki, well, thank you for joining us. Seriously, thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we will definitely have to bring you back on because I really want to dive down that Lady Stoneheart theory, and I'm sure Ez does because he's a Lady Stoneheart loyalist. And so, all right, so everybody go check out her TikTok. It is Kale, as in the Kale
the vegetable.
There's the word I was looking for. You can tell how many vegetables I eat when I can't even remember the word. Kale EC, where there's an underscore after Kale. So thank you so much again. Everybody go check her out. You can follow Ez and I at Super Games Bros and at Womprat_2M. So as always, we want to thank you guys for playing the Game of Thrones. I don't know what we're going to be discussing next time. Hopefully the House of the Dragon Super Bowl commercial. Let's go. This episode will be coming out the Sunday after the Super Bowl on the podcast.
Well, we probably have already covered it.
Hopefully. Well, maybe. Who knows? But hopefully Ezra's Bengals get a win tonight,
Yeah, so, thanks, man.
Just gotta throw that out there, man. I'm rooting for you. Yeah. Right. So anyway, guys, as always, I want to thank you for watching. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, thank you for listening. We will see you next time. And remember that winter is coming.